Hello everybody, it's Jamie from Old Shipping Lines and welcome back to a new video. Now in the video of today we will discuss a dark chapter in our maritime history, Hell Ships. Now some of us are familiar with this term and many associate it primarily with Japan, which had the most notorious hell ships during World War II. Now today we will talk about the story of the hell ships. Now the terms hell and hell ship were used by American POWs to describe their terrible conditions and cruel treatment they received on board British ships during the American Revolutionary War. Now these ships were used to imprison American soldiers who refused to pledge their loyalty to Britain. And it is estimated that around 11,000 of them perished during their captivity. The HMS Jersey was the largest and most infamous of these ships. Originally designed to accommodate 400 sailors. But during the war, she held up to 1,100 men, leading to extreme overcrowding. When the British departed from New York City in 1783, they set fire to the Jersey, while prisoners were still on board. Now, Allied prisoners of war during World War II referred to merchant vessels requisitioned by the Empire of Japan as hell ships. These ships were used to transport POWs and forced laborers to different locations under Japanese control. Now, according to historian Gregory F. Michnow, approximately 126,000 Allied POWs were transported via 134 Japanese hell ships during the war. The Japanese utilized forced labor, including from POWs, to produce materials necessary for military operations. The purpose of these ships was to transfer POWs to areas where they would be compelled to produce materials for Japan's war effort. Now, on board these vessels, the conditions were extremely cruel. Prisoners were often denied sufficient food, drink, and bathroom facilities, and were forced into cramped spaces. This resulted in terminal dehydration, hypothermia, and starvation. Additionally, some passengers faced summary executions and excessive beatings, leading to their death. However, the main cause of fatalities for POWs on these ships were unintentional Allied attacks. Thousands of prisoners lost their lives due to these attacks, as the ships were targeted by the Allies because they also transported Japanese war cargo. The United States Navy, with the assistance of Allied intelligence services, carried out most of these attacks. Now, the British press used the term hell ship to describe the ships that Nazi Germany used to transport Allied POWs. One example is the oil tanker Altmark, which picked up 300 British sailors after their merchant ships were sunk by the Kriegsmarine cruiser Admiral Graf Spee. The Royal Navy destroyer HMS Cossack boarded the Altmark and successfully rescued the prisoners. British newspapers often referred to Altmark as Hitler's Hell Ship or the Nazi Hell Ship when reporting on this rescue, which became known as the Altmark Incident. In May 1942, the Japanese started transporting their captured POWs across the sea. These prisoners were often packed tightly into cargo holds, with very limited air, ventilation, food or water, for journeys that lasted for weeks. Unfortunately, many of them died due to suffocation, starvation, or dysentery. The harsh conditions of heat, humidity, and lack of oxygen, sustenance, and hydration caused some POWs to become delirious and unresponsive. These transport ships carried a combination of POWs, regular Japanese troops, and cargo, which meant they could be targeted by Allied submarines and aircraft, since they were not considered non-combatants. Consequently, these vessels were at risk of being sunk even before reaching their intended destination. Tragically, over 2,000 Allied POWs lost their lives at sea, when the transport ships carrying them were attacked by Allied submarines and aircraft. Now, like I said, during World War II, some of the most notorious hell ships were operated by Japan. Here are a few examples. On the 24th of October 1944, the Arisan Maru was carrying 1,781 US and Allied military and civilian POWs. At around 5 p.m., the ship was struck by a torpedo from a US submarine, either the USS Shark or the USS Snoke. The ship sank at approximately 7 p.m. Luckily, none of the POWs were killed by the torpedoes, and most of them managed to escape from the ship's holds. However, the Japanese did not make any rescue attempts for the survivors in the sea. Out of the prisoners on board, only 9 survived the sinking. 5 of them escaped and found their way to China, using one of the ship's lifeboats. They were eventually reunited with US forces and returned to the United States. The remaining 4 prisoners were later captured again by Japanese naval vessels. Sadly, one of them passed away shortly after reaching land. The WWII Maru, a 5,446-ton Yoshida Maru No. 1 class transport, was sunk on the 26th of January 1943 by USS Wahoo under the command of CDR Dudley W. Morton. The ship was carrying mainly Indian prisoners of war. After the torpedo attack, Morton ordered small arms fire towards the ship's lifeboats. The Hague Convention of 1907 strictly prohibits the killing of survivors in shipwreck incidents, regardless of the circumstances. Morton and his executive officer, Richard O. Kane, later claimed that they had mistakenly identified the survivors as Japanese. Out of the 1,126 men on board WWII Maru, 159 Indians and 87 Japanese lost their lives. The SS Kachidoki Maru, carrying 950 British POWs, was sunk on the 12th of September 1944 by the USS Papanito, resulting in the loss of 431 lives. On the 12th of September 1944, the Rakuyo Maru was attacked by the USS Sea Lion. It was later discovered that the ship was carrying 1,317 Australian and British prisoners of war, who were being transported from Singapore to Formosa. Tragically, 1,159 POWs lost their lives in the sinking. The 350 individuals who managed to escape into lifeboats were tragically targeted and killed by a Japanese naval vessel the following day, as they attempted to row towards land. On the 15th of September, the USS Sea Lion, along with the USS Crawler and the USS Pampanito, returned to the area and successfully rescued 63 surviving POWs, who were found on rafts. Sadly, 4 of them passed away before they could be safely transported to Tanapak Harbor in Saipan, located in the Mariana Islands. With the surrender of Japan in August 1945, the practice of using hell ships came to an end. The Allied forces, particularly the United States, took control of Japan, and the surviving prisoners of war and laborers were liberated from these ships. The end of World War II marked the end of this brutal chapter in history, and efforts were made to provide medical care and support to those who had suffered on these ships. And although this is a tragic and dark chapter in our maritime community, I believe it deserves to be shared. And I really hope that I did some justice in this video for the victims of this dark chapter in our maritime history. And that is the end to a video. Thank you all so very much for watching. I appreciate the support. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. That would help out the channel a lot. And don't forget to click on the video suggested here in the outro, as I'm sure you will enjoy that one as well. Now, if you have any comments or thoughts on this video, please leave them in the comment section down below. As well, what ships you would like me to cover next. Now, with that out of the way, guys, I wish you all a good night or day wherever you are, and we will see each other on the next video. Goodbye, my friends.